fellow Deltans, ladies and gentlemen of the press, permit me to address you virtually as I make a formal bid to run for the office of the Governor of Delta State in 2023 under the platform of the Boot Party. While I would have loved to see most of you grace this historic occasion of my declaration to restore hope to every Deltan, I can assure you that holding this important event in an almost empty hall does not in any way undermine our drive to bring shelter, hope, and development to Deltans. Rather, I urge you all to pay keen attention to the content of this message embodying our vision for Greater Delta. For those who might be wondering who this boy is, I am Onyemaechi Francis Nnana, also known as Francis Onyema. I hail from Ezionum in Ukwuani Local Government Area, born in Kwale, Ndokwa West. I hold a B.Sc Degree in Political Science from the prestigious University of Nigeria, Nsukka. By every virtue, I am eminently qualified to run for the office of the Governor of Delta State. A few years ago, I never considered vying for any political office, not if offered on a platter of gold, but seeing the undeserving circumstances we find ourselves in today, one we must change for good, it becomes incumbent on me to offer my services as governor in order to meet the aspirations of Deltans in 2023 and beyond, if elected. It is the dream of every Deltan to live in decent homes, to have access to jobs and other economic means. It is the dream of every Deltan to have transformational learning conditions and to live in an aura of peace. Unfortunately, for more than 2 decades, we have had certain oligarchs, cabal if you like, undermine the institution of governance in the state in order to amass wealth illegitimately and to hold on to power at all costs. The actions and inactions of those entrusted with the management of our commonwealth over time have left us worse off. Proper policies that do not instigate real economic growth have become the fulcrum of successive public policies. Today, we are perplexed by the spate of unemployment in the state. Youth empowerment schemes have become a mirage of job creation. I make bold to state that empowering a youth with keke na pep, sewing or barbering kits, especially when such empowerment schemes does not guarantee global competitiveness, is tantamount to economic sabotage. Sadly, this is the norm with the leaders we've had in our beloved state for over 2 decades. For more than 2 decades, we have had leaders who plundered our scarce resources, leaders whose priorities have left us in the dark state of poverty and disarray. For the records, I will not be a governor that gives you street lights, whereas you are homeless or without electricity in your homes. I will not be a governor that beautifies the streets and overhead bridges with flowers, whereas what you are craving for is greener pastures. I will not be a governor that spends 17 billion naira on building a state secretariat, whereas the same amount would be enough to revolutionize the real sector of our economy in order to create jobs for you and I. I will only be a governor driven by thoughtfulness and compassion to address the immediate needs of Deltans. I understand the most important needs of Deltans. I understand that most of us can't bear the brunt of exorbitant house rents in Asaba, Warri, Ueli, and Agbo. Hence, the policy thrust of my administration, if elected governor in 2023, would be to address the housing deficit in these cities and other parts of the state. My administration seeks to provide Deltans with 10,000 units of modern and affordable housing annually under the Build Delta Housing Scheme. The funding of this program and other economic drivers would be overseen by the Delta State Sustainable Finance and Economic Growth Plan, DSS FEG Plan. An economic think tank committee to be constituted by my administration if I am elected as governor in 2023. The committee will be driven by the philosophy of public spending to address the most fundamental public needs of Deltans, create opportunities, and build the state's internally generated revenue. Part of the objectives of investing in the housing needs of Deltans is to create markets for businesses to thrive in these core cities, especially the small and medium enterprises. By making housing affordable for all, we look to attract a pool of human resources integral for the growth of our dear state. Let me make it clear. Not a single block of the Delta State Housing Scheme would be sold to merchants who might exploit the scheme for their selfish interests. All of the blocks of the aforementioned housing scheme would be accessible to Deltans and all other inhabitants of the state on a rental basis and at affordable rates. Our vision is to establish Warri and Asaba as the business hubs of the Niger Delta region. Decent and affordable housing for all is the way to go. In the same vein, my administration, through the DSS FEG plan, will aggressively pursue a policy of advanced land preparation in the rural areas of the state as a strategy to improve crop yield, create opportunities for Deltans, check the excessive hike in the prices of food items, as well as improve access to raw materials in the state. This idea encapsulates a diversity in approach to attract Deltans, especially the youths, to the business of farming. Before now, we have had the common practice of past governments, including the present one, appropriate agricultural loans to their friends and cronies, political farmers if you like, who most often divert these funds to other selfish and unproductive ventures. While our society is rife with corrupt practices, my government would stamp its authority to ensure that critical funding for the growth of the state is never diverted. One way to achieve this in respect to agricultural investments in the state is to meet any serious farmer on the land. My administration will thus lead the way in land preparation for business-minded farmers only. I am convinced that with this approach, we will attract much more energetic youths to the business of growing crops and other agricultural yields. We must note, however, that land preparation for improved farming is not complete with just tilling the soil with mechanical implements, but adequately nourishing it for improved productivity. Given my firm belief in value-added growth, my administration will relentlessly pursue a policy to establish a fertilizer processing plant with adequate capacity to meet the needs of Deltans. This project is significant in many ways if we must advance from a consumerist state to a productive powerhouse of the Niger Delta region. The fertilizer processing plant is one of many calculated efforts to attract investors to the state by improving access to raw materials. This project must be completed within the first 3 years of my administration as governor if elected in 2023. In about 4 years of my administration, we would be adequately equipped to pursue a state policy on revolutionary wheat production. With a revolutionary agricultural plan in place, our journey to opening up the state to investors has just begun. Our vision to entrench a productive culture to Delta State revolves around improving access to raw materials and other tools with which we work. Critical infrastructural development becomes pivotal in achieving our core mandate of an industrialized state. While these initiatives would set our state on a path of socio-economic transformation, we are not paying deaf ears to the challenges of dwindling resources accruable to the state as a result of given circumstances and the mismanagement of our scarce resources by the present and past administrations. To make headway, my administration will strengthen relevant institutions of the state in order to improve the ties with private sectors so as to boost the exploration of solid minerals and investments in other critical sectors of our economy. To this effect, my administration will review the provisions of the law establishing the Delta State Investment Development Agency, DIDA, in view of enhancing the agency to boost mineral and natural resource exploration in the state through a rejigged public-private partnership system that works with the core mandate of collaborating and facilitating the grant of mineral exploration titles to interested partners. DIDA would not only be rejigged to strategically woo investors to the state, we will consult and implement a seamless model for business partnerships to thrive. On my watch, DIDA would be mandated to invest or hold 50% equity shares on behalf of the Delta State government in business startups proving to meet the productive drive of my administration and are largely sustainable. Meanwhile, there is no doubt that the private sector in this part of the world is largely underdeveloped and lacks the much needed capital for turnaround investments in our economy. In this light, our vision of sustainable development is a well-rounded strategy to advance sustainability of the private sector in Delta State. To achieve this, we will expand access to finance through financial intermediaries, engage with world-class business support organizations, and develop appropriate economic infrastructure for businesses to thrive in the state. Let me reaffirm that improving the private sector in our beloved state is very dear to my heart, a legacy I hope to be remembered for. My administration will lead the way in proactive development of the private sector through counterpart funding of productive and sustainable ventures. A redesign of the youth empowerment schemes in the state is one of many ways to get off in the right direction. If I am elected the governor of Delta State in 2023, my administration will create a public business incubator to oversee the funding and training of youths to become economically independent and employers of labor. We will provide for a 45 billion naira Delta State annual industrial fund through the state's annual budget for youths and investors willing to key into our blueprint of a productive economy. Youths with interest in production whose ventures are ascertained to be sustainable and with the capacity to employ a minimum of 10 persons are prioritized for empowerment under the scheme. This benchmark will never be politicized. To this effect, we will introduce the biannual business plan competition in order to seek for bankable businesses to be funded. The business plan competition would be open to every Nigerian whose existing or potential businesses meet our investment criteria. these businesses must be fully operational in Delta State. As part of efforts to boost investments in the state, my administration will establish the Delta State Business Hub in Warri and Asaba by providing office space and facilities at low rent so as to offer support for new ventures through the tricky early stages of business startups. These hubs would house ICT investments in computer programming, web development, data analysis, software development, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data mining, and more. Deltans who have first-class or second-class honors in related fields of sciences and engineering would be trained in these areas of technical skills. I would emphasize that our vision to transform the private sector in Delta State is to provide both funding and infrastructural support to ventures capable of producing goods and services that are of export value. If we must diversify our economy, improve the export value of locally produced goods and services, check the disparity between the Naira and the US dollar, producing goods and services that are globally competitive is the way to go. There is no doubt in my mind that the constituent states of the Nigerian Federation can lead this evolution. Delta State will not be left out under my watch. However, I must admit that the worrying issues of banditry, kidnapping, insurgency, and separatist agitations across the nation constitute threats to both local and foreign investors. Without addressing these security challenges decisively, any economic plan to address the needs of Nigerians will only look good on paper, no matter how meticulous it is. The onus is on us, ahead of the 2023 general elections, to assess and possibly elect a president with the definite answers to the challenges of insecurity in Nigeria. A president with the resolute will to pursue power both economically and militarily. A nation's might to quell both internal and external aggressors can never be overemphasized as crucial in keeping the peace for businesses to thrive. Nigerians must queue behind a presidential candidate with a concise plan to nip in the bud the illegal possession and proliferation of firearms, which has aided every ounce of criminality in the country. Whereas as a nation, we are burdened by the issues of kidnapping, terrorism, human and drug trafficking, armed banditry, and whatnot, we must pay due attention to human rights violations of Nigerians by the forces meant to protect us. The NSAS protest of October 2020, which almost crumbled socio-economic activities across the nation, is a clear indication that human rights violations in any part of this country constitute the greatest security threat to every one of us. Government's inaction to check the excesses of the men and women of the Nigerian police force is a security threat in itself. Hence, if I am elected the governor of Delta State in 2023, I will lobby and mobilize support for a provision of the law to grant state governors the power to monitor the activities of police officers serving in their respective states. This is in view to guarantee that men and women of the Nigeria Police Force are ethical in the discharge of their duties. In order to address the prevalent security concerns in Delta State, my administration will establish a technology-driven institution through the mechanics of lawmaking with a mandate to monitor and possibly reward police officers serving in the state who prove to be professional in the discharge of their duties from time to time. This institution will also lead the way in equipping the force in Delta State in order to advance efficient communication of police officers in the operational field through the means of technology, without holding back our efforts to boost the morale of serving police officers in the state. My administration will grant scholarships from primary to tertiary level of education to the first child of every serving police officer in Delta State. I have no doubt in my mind that taking the educational responsibility of the first child off the shoulders of serving police officers in the state will go a long way to inspire diligence, selfishness, and professionalism within the Delta State Police Command. Our efforts to guarantee that Delta State is a safe haven for investors and each and every one of us boils down to ensuring that the quality of learning in our public institutions is tremendously improved. It is never enough to build institutions of higher learning in every nook and cranny of the state, but to guarantee that these institutions are affordable and meet global educational standards. To this effect, my administration will pursue educational policies geared towards enhancing the technical skills of Deltans in order to inspire a workforce that is globally competitive. We will consult and possibly revamp the technical skills module in the state, provide for advanced technical infrastructures in post-primary and tertiary institutions of learning across the state, as well as recruit highly skilled instructors who fit into our model of technical education. At the same time, we will beef up security around most schools across the state in order to assure a safe and secure environment for learning. In the same vein, we will revamp our health infrastructures to provide for adequate health amenities, which includes furnishing most public clinics in the urban areas of the state with a minimum 5 oxygen cylinders fully filled at all times and 2 in the rural areas. My administration will champion the Delta State Oxygen for Life initiative that guarantees patients in critical conditions get the needed medical care. My heart bleeds whenever it occurs that patients have to lose their lives as a result of no oxygen in most of our public health institutions. Importantly, we will pursue a policy that affords healthcare personnel serving in the state opportunities to upgrade their skills in order to meet best practices across the globe. Let me use this medium to seek the support of Deltans and Nigerians at large to give whatever they can, whether moral, spiritual, or financial support, to achieve our dream of bringing shelter, hope, and development to Deltans. As I often maintain, elections should be about competing ideas, never about competing money bags. It is indeed time for us, especially the youths, to contribute our quotas to the development of our nation by making informed decisions at the polls in the 2023 general elections. I want to assure you that 2023 offers an opportunity to redirect the course and development of our great state if I am elected governor on the platform of the Boot Party. Finally, I wish to thank the Delta State Chairman of our party, Comrade Sylvester Umujeni, for his inspiring leadership role in advancing the cause of the party in the state. I also want to extend my gratitude to you all for your rapt attention. Keep supporting Francis Onyema and the Boot Party all the way because of our tomorrow and greater data. Thank you for listening.